So I've had the iPhone 17 Pro for just over a month now, and last week I actually did a mobile filmmaking kit breakdown where I talk about the gear that I use with my iPhone 17 as well as the Blackmagic Cam app and how I set it up for filmmaking on the go. Today I just want to make a video talking about whether or not I think the iPhone 17 Pro actually is a great camera or something that you can actually use on the field and in your content creation or even as like a professional filmmaking tool. I've seen a lot of great videos on the specs of the camera. I'm actually filming this A-roll both on the Sony FX3 as well as the iPhone 17 Pro just to see what it looks like in the same exact lighting. I'm not shooting currently in OpenGate, I'm just shooting in Apple ProRes 422 HQ in the new Apple Log 2. Now the main question that I wanted to tackle, mainly for myself, is whether or not I can actually finally use an iPhone in my day-to-day workflow as a professional filmmaking tool, or whether or not you can kind of tell whether something is shot on a phone versus obviously like a full frame camera or something of the like. Now, long story short, obviously I don't think the iPhone is up to par with the Sony FX3 or any full frame camera or like the new Nikon ZR series or any of the like. Now, to put it simply, there's two main reasons I think why you can obviously tell something is shot on an iPhone versus obviously a full frame camera. The new Apple Log 2 and the ability to shoot in Apple ProRes 422 HQ as well as OpenGate and ProRes RAW now are honestly, they're huge game changers. But the two things that hold the iPhone back are, number one, obviously the sensor size. The sensor size, while I don't think there's any official, correct me if I'm wrong, but the sensor size is about 1 1/3 inches, I believe. Compared to a full frame sensor, that's about a quarter of the size, like the Sony FX3 that I'm currently filming on. A larger sensor, just simply put, allows for more light to hit it. And so that allows for a greater dynamic range. It allows for higher image quality generally. And when you have a smaller sensor, you need a lot of post-processing to get that image to something comparable to, let's say, a full frame sensor in this case. Along with the sensor size issue is the fixed aperture, or obviously on the iPhone, you can tell that there are three main lenses. There is the 0.5 equivalent to a 13mm lens. There's the 1X, which is basically a 24mm lens. And then there's the 4X, which is, I think it's like 100mm. Apple says there's like 8 different lenses on the new iPhone, but realistically, there's only basically 3. There's 3 lenses. The other ones are digital enhanced zoom cropped lenses. The 8X is just an enhanced cropped lens of the 4X, etc., etc. But the 3 main lenses all have a fixed aperture of, I believe, 1.78. F1.78 is great, but that coupled with the smaller sensor size doesn't quite allow for you to get the same depth of field as you would on a fixed prime lens or even the newer zoom lenses. That aperture coupled with a smaller sensor size compared to a full frame camera like the Sony FX3 and the prime 24mm f1.4 G Master that I'm currently filming on leaves you clearly telling the difference between a difference in depth of field that you can achieve with the iPhone compared to obviously a full frame camera. I'm not saying that you have to have that same shallow depth of field or the ability to get that on the new iPhone. I'm just saying that that's a clear giveaway and a clear takeaway in terms of the differences between obviously a professional level camera and just the flexibility of being able to change your lenses, achieving different apertures and not being stuck to one single aperture across the board. The depth of field separation that you get from cameras isn't just the lens, it's a combination of your distance from your subject as well as the sensor size as well as the aperture. So all these factors combining into the iPhone and its form factor really just kind of dictate the type of image quality that you get. And it's still, in my opinion, you can clearly tell when a film is shot on an iPhone versus a large full frame or larger sensor cameras. Real quickly before we hop into the next section, let me take a quick second to talk about a feature that I've been using pretty heavily both in this YouTube channel and on my client work, and it's from the sponsor of today's video, Artlist. So Artlist is always consistently updating their website with the latest features. Obviously, they have their AI image, AI video, and AI voiceover features, which I've spoken about on this channel before. But recently, I've been heavily utilizing this song match feature. What song match does is it takes any song from either YouTube or Spotify, and it'll find similar sounding songs on the Artlist library. So for example, one of my favorite artists is Nujabes, but I'd like to use similar sounding songs as his lo-fi jazz feel. And so what I do is basically take this link, I'll just go ahead and paste it into this generator here, click search, and then really quickly, it's gonna come up with a bunch of similar sounding songs that I could use copyright free in both my commercial and YouTube work. This one's got a really nice lo-fi jazz feel. Aves is a great artist, I use their music all the time. Again, another great selection from the library. As you can see, I've already downloaded this Slight Lines by Waltz. This is another great track, and all these tracks sound really similar to my original track, which obviously I can't play because it's copyrighted. It's honestly just a really streamlined process, and this song match feature is honestly a huge game changer, and it's really easy to find similar sounding songs to your favorite copyrighted music. Additionally, with Song Match, Artlist is one of the few platforms that integrates Sora 2 Pro natively within their software. I'm sure you've seen all over social media how strong and powerful both VO3 as well as Sora 2 are, and these models are consistently updating. Sora 2 Pro, I've played around with it, it's really interesting. And just having the option to utilize these fast image and video models into your workflow to create both B-roll, different transitions, it's a lot of fun and it's really useful. If you want to check out Song Match or any of the latest features on Artlist, go ahead and click the link down in the description below for a special perk when you sign up to Artlist for your next subscription. Thanks again to Artlist for sponsoring today's video. Now moving along from aperture and sensor size, let's talk about a few things that I really love about the iPhone and things that I think get it closer to a professional cinema style camera. The real big talk point in the new iPhone 17 Pro is the ability to shoot in Apple ProRes RAW. Apple ProRes RAW is really interesting because you can change your ISO and your white balance in post, and it gives you another layer of flexibility compared to just shooting in Apple ProRes 422 HQ, which is actually what I shoot on most of the time. My personal opinion on shooting OpenGate ProRes RAW though is it's not realistic in most case situations. Number one, the file sizes are I think almost 2 times as large as 422 HQ. You get obviously a larger use of a sensor when you shoot in OpenGate, but the biggest thing is that you can't use the in-camera stabilization when you shoot in OpenGate in ProRes RAW. This is kind of a huge deal, especially for content creators or people who are on the go. If you're just locking off your iPhone on sticks or you're rigging it out so it's super heavy, then obviously you could treat this as a cinema camera. But if you're gonna rig out your iPhone anyways and create these huge massive rigs that I see, I don't see the practicality of shooting on your iPhone. You might as well just shoot on a proper full frame or cinema camera. Where the iPhone shines is in its day-to-day use, its small form size, its ability to get into tight locations, rig it up like almost as if it's like a GoPro in different unique angles. And to do so, you need, for the most part, I always have standard stabilization on. So when you shoot an OpenGate ProRes RAW, you can't use stabilization. I think that's a killing point, unless you have it on a tripod or you have it super heavy rigged out. The iPhone is super light, so you're really gonna see those noticeable micro jitters in your footage. I think the micro jitters are a killing point, and it almost makes the footage unusable when you shoot in OpenGate ProRes RAW. So for the most part, I'm actually shooting in a codec called Apple ProRes 422 HQ. It's a really high-res codec, and you can still shoot in Apple Log 2. You get great image quality, but you get stabilization. You can use active or standard, the two main ones on the iPhone, and it just gets rid of those micro jitters and it makes the footage usable. I think for most people, shooting in Apple ProRes 422 HQ is a great option, and the ability to shoot ProRes RAW, again, if you want to shoot in ProRes RAW and OpenGate, by all means, utilize that feature, especially if you're using a tripod or you have it on a gimbal or something. But for most case situations, I think most people are gonna be using either 422 HQ or even I think the H.265 also allows for Apple Log 2 and high codecs. If you shoot in Apple ProRes RAW, the file sizes are massive. So you're definitely gonna need an SSD. I did a whole breakdown of what I use in my previous video, but just really quickly, you can use any sort of like USB-C dongle thing that attaches to your iPhone. And then you're obviously gonna need an ND filter. So I like to use the Freewell ND filter that I talked about in my previous video as well. All my gear will be linked in the description. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'm trying to get to those. Overall, I've been using the iPhone a lot, that I've been loving the footage that comes out of really well-lit, bright conditions, especially in the daytime. In low light situations, the sensor size really shows itself and you can start to get a lot of noticeable grain, especially when you start boosting the ISO. Oftentimes I find myself shooting on the lowest possible ISO, which I believe is 54, is it 50 or 54 on the Blackmagic Cam app? Somewhere around 100 is kind of the sweet spot on the iPhone. Anything over that, you start to get really noticeable digital noise in the image, and it kind of makes it's more of a clear giveaway that this footage is shot on the iPhone. Overall, the footage, especially landscape shots or shots that are taken a little bit further away, really shine on this camera. I think for some shots, it's really difficult to tell the difference, especially when you grade them very similar to a full frame camera. Again, my favorite footage came from really well lit scenarios where you had a lot of light that allowed for even a smaller sensor to really shine. And I don't see the new Apple Log 2 is that different from Apple Log 1. I haven't gone really deep into the specs, but if you're grading normally, I think you can still use, for the most part, the same grading that you're using on the Apple Log. That's what I've been doing, and I haven't found that many noticeable differences. But really, the trade-off of having a smaller sensor and form factor is actually a positive when you utilize the iPhone in ways that you can't do with a larger cinema camera or full frame camera. Rigging this in really cool ways, I've seen a lot of footage online from creators utilizing this as almost as if it's like a GoPro or an Insta360 camera, and then going ahead and matching that footage with full frame footage and really blending together an exciting piece. I think that's where this phone and this camera really shines. This is ability and its size and form factor. You can really quickly set this up and get it ready to go within like a minute. It's not that difficult to pop on an ND filter, get on the storage, and have this ready to go at all times. So I think that's where this shines. I think if you're a casual or a semi-professional or just like a content creator or someone who's creating smaller commercial projects, you can definitely utilize the iPhone 17 Pro in a number of different ways to really get the most out of the camera and really utilize the small form factor in a very positive way. If you're looking to use this as your end-all be-all camera for everything, I think it's going to limit you just a bit. I don't know any people who really do that, really. I think it's a great travel setup. It was the only camera that I ended up taking to Europe a couple weeks ago, and I use it every single day. It was really nice not to have to carry around a large A7C II in my bag or an FX3 or just something huge and bulky, especially when you just want to enjoy the moment sometimes. The smaller form factor is really a blessing. Oh, one thing I almost forgot to mention, and something that I didn't realize was that big of a deal, was they're talking about this new vapor chamber in the iPhone 17 Pro where it reduces the amount of heat that you get. My iPhone 16 actually overheated quite a bit, especially when you left it kind of on your dashboard when you're driving or things like that. It overheated super quickly, and especially when you're filming on higher codecs, the overall system just got really hot. The new iPhone 17, I haven't had any issues with overheating. It's really cool, and it's a really noticeable difference on the update. I don't see a lot of people talking about that in real use or even like filmmaking aspects, but the new cooling system that they have in the iPhone is a huge positive. I think it's really useful, and it actually helps a lot in day-to-day usage. So that, coupled with utilizing your camera with an SSD and an ND, rigging it out, the overheating function, it doesn't overheat as much. What I'm trying to say is I haven't had any overheating issues, which I did have on the 16. So that was a huge positive. If you have any questions on the iPhone 17 Pro, any of the lenses, what I like the most, I'm typically filming on the 1X, to be honest. That's like the best lens that I feel is easiest to grade. It just looks great. Sometimes I'm using the 4X on like zoom shots, not as much. I also like the 0.5. Having the lenses all be, I think, 48 megapixels now is great, and the image quality is beautiful. If you want to see an iPhone color grade breakdown in the future at some point, leave the word color grade down below so that I know you might be interested in that. Besides that, if you're interested in my LUTs, my sound effects, any of that jazz, it'll all be linked down to my shop down below as well. It's a great help to the channel, and I always appreciate you guys checking it out and supporting in that fashion. Thanks again for watching to the very end, and I'll see you guys in the next one.